Emotional scene outside of Mount Sinai Hospital last night. Chicago police officers saluting an officer shot in the line of duty. That officer was the fourth one shot in just this past 2 weeks.
Showed you that last night.
Okay, so we had another crazy incident out by Home Depot yesterday. And this is indicative of what's been going on right now with the cops, you know, in the Chicago area, not just the city. Guys are very quick to blow. And this is a big misconception. I'm not sure if I'm going to drop this video already before this one or after this one, but I made a video about, like, you know, popular misconceptions about Chicago. This is a huge misconception about Chicago, that guys don't blow at the cops. They only blow at each other. They don't blow at the cops. Man, they blow at the cops all the time. These guys see the CPD as just another gang, you know what I'm saying, just another set of ops, and they shoot at them quick. So, I mean, the Chicago police, they got to be on point, because, you know, they pull over somebody, he might just hop out blowing. So, an alleged shoplifter shot and seriously wounded a security guard Thursday afternoon at a Home Depot on the south side, then shot a Chicago cop in the shoulder before dying in a shootout nearby with other officers. So, the officer was the fourth Chicago cop to be shot in 2 weeks. I rest my case, okay? During a news conference, and this is not recent, this has been going on, okay? During a news conference outside Mount Sinai Hospital, Chicago Police Superintendent David Brown, the officer appeared to be in good spirits after suffering a gunshot wound to the shoulder. The wound wasn't thought to be life-threatening. Based on that, I don't know what kind of gun the guy was using, but my friend, this was a long time ago, probably 15 years ago, he got hit in the shoulder with a deuce. And this is one of those instances where, like, a deuce is actually worse, you know, than getting hit with something bigger, because, you know, something bigger might have just gone in and out, okay, at the shoulder. Well, the deuce, you know, it bounced, like, it ricocheted off of the bone and then went, like, zigzag into his lung. And he was in bad shape. We didn't know if he was going to make it. He eventually did make it, thank goodness, man. But, yeah, those shoulder shots, that's a kind of an interesting area to get hit, because there's bones over there that it can, you know, travel from. But I say that because, you know, sometimes if you see a guy get shot in the shoulder and you think, oh, he's good because it didn't hit a vital organ, you got to get him to the hospital right away anyways, because you don't know where that bullet is going to travel. So the suspect was pronounced dead at a hospital, and the gunshot wound to the officer was not life-threatening. But about 4 p.m., a loss prevention officer at a Home Depot store in the 2400 block of West 46th Street saw a suspect shoplifting. During an ensuing struggle, the suspect shot the security guard, who was in grave condition. The guard, who was in his early 50s, was taken to the hospital, and when the suspect fled, officers pursued, and one officer was shot. The officer, a 40-year veteran of the department, was treated at the hospital, and following that shooting, other officers continued to pursue the suspect. The suspect was then shot and killed during a shootout with police. So, interestingly, a lot of these guys that have been shooting at the cops have not been killed in shootout with cops. A lot of them have just been arrested, you know what I'm saying, and taken in, like Shomari Leggett, you know. So at the scene of the shooting, police officers blocked off a residential stretch of 46 between Western Avenue and Rockwell as residents congregated behind the police tape to catch a glimpse of the investigation. So nearby, officers taped off sections of the Home Depot parking lot across Western Avenue and laying down evidence markers. In the last 2 weeks, 3 other Chicago cops have been wounded in shootings. So David Brown, he said, I get questions all the time about what is the department doing about violence? What are we doing about the shootings? What are we doing about the homicides? What are we doing? And he said, what we are doing is risking our lives every day to protect this city. He noted that law enforcement officers across the country are under attack. Those are his words, reflecting on the cop who was shot and killed, responding to the recent mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado. He said, but here in Chicago, it's the idea that cops are putting their lives on the line every day. And it seems that these offenders are acting with impunity, and yet with hypercriticism, officers continue to run towards danger. So when the wounded officer was discharged later Thursday, Brown and other members of the police force gathered at the hospital to salute him. Thursday's shooting comes after an officer was shot in her hand. A female officer was shot in her hand Saturday during a SWAT standoff in the Austin neighborhood by a man who allegedly wanted to, quote, lure cops to the area. On March 15th, an off-duty officer was ambushed by 2 gunmen while stopping in traffic in the Calumet Heights neighborhood, and a day before that, an on-duty CPD sergeant was shot while standing in the parking lot of the Gresham District Police Station. So he was shot right by the police station at 78th and Halstead. The bullet grazed his chin, and he was released from the hospital later that day. So the mayor, Lori Lightfoot, she took to Twitter on Thursday to wish the wounded cop a speedy recovery. saying that it's, quote, absolutely appalling that he was the fourth officer shot in 2 weeks. Said this evening's incident is another sober reminder of the dangers that our officers face to keep their fellow Chicagoans safe. So like I said, man, the gangs in Chicago, they see CPD as just another gang. So it's no different. They're subject to the same rules. I mean, guys in Chicago have been battling the police for decades, man. I mean, this goes back really at least as long as I've been alive. I've been hearing on the radio all the time, like, guy got in the shootout with the cops, guy shot at the cop. Like, this is regular stuff here, man. And so, when dudes see the cops, like, acting trigger happy, well, what would you do? You know what I'm saying? I mean, they got to be on point like these gang members got to be on point. And, a gang member, you pull up on him, what's he going to do? Like, is he going to wait to see what you're going to do? Or is he going to shoot first and ask questions later? You know what I'm saying? Like, put his life first. No, that's how it goes. Like, the rules of the streets apply to everybody. You know what I'm saying? And the cops are indirectly in the streets. So if you pull up on them, you know what I'm saying? Or if you, duck your hand or tuck this or move that or whatever it is, you know what I'm saying? You got to expect that because that's how it goes.
From a broad perspective, men and women in law enforcement all across the country are under attack. The officer in Boulder, Colorado, Officer Talley, recently lost his life trying to save people who were involved in an active shooter, and so many people died there. But here in Chicago, it's like you mentioned, it's the idea that, cops are putting their lives on the line every day, and it seems that these offenders are acting with impunity in the way not only do they shoot at each other, but they're basically loss of respect for law enforcement. And yet, with hypercriticism, officers continue to run toward danger. And I can't say enough of how much courage and bravery it takes to run toward bullets when others would cower and quit and run the opposite way. These men and women run toward danger to protect this city.
It's happening more often. Criminals shooting at Chicago cops.
It was on the back left shoulder area.
This year alone, 25 Chicago police officers have been shot at. 4 of them have been hit. The Chicago Police Memorial Foundation gathered interviews with officers who have come millimeters away from a potentially fatal encounter with a bullet.
Very traumatic. I was replaying the whole incident over and over again in the head.
July of last year, outside the 25th District Police Station on the northwest side, a carjacking suspect pulled a gun, shooting 3 officers in a chaotic and dangerous scene heard on cell phone video.
The minute I proceeded a little bit too far past the building where that concealment was, I ended up feeling what felt like a complete punch to my left shoulder. At that point, I kind of blanked out for a moment. Ultimately, adrenaline was kicking in and staying in the fight until the end.
What saved him and others? A bulletproof vest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I saw the muzzle flash at me, it was like the Matrix, like it's coming at me slowly.
This officer was shot responding to a domestic disturbance last June. He was interviewed by Ro Khan for the foundation.
And that's when I stepped out and in the middle of the aisle, and I saw the offender in the back door, and he has a handgun pointed right at me. And at that time, he fires a shot.
Where did it hit you?
It hit me right in the heart.
The difference between life and death is a thin layer of super strong plastic. The fact police groups privately raise money to pay for the vests isn't lost on officers who've had close calls.
That's very important. And at this time, any support is good for us, because it seems like everybody's against us right now.
We would ask the public to keep this officer and his family in your prayers. This is the 4th officer shot in 2 weeks. And I get questions all the time about what is the department doing about violence? What are we doing about the shootings? What are we doing about the homicides? What we are doing is risking our lives every day to protect this city. That's what we're doing. And the brave, courageous men and women of Chicago Police Department are unmatched, the most talented department in the country. But we are not without flaws. But this is done with great risk. And officers every day put their lives on the line. And God bless the men and women of the Chicago Police Department.
Proceeded a little bit too far past the building where that concealment was. I ended up feeling what felt like a complete punch to my left shoulder. At that point, I kind of blanked out for a moment. Ultimately, adrenaline was kicking in and staying in the fight until the end.